Ready, Gaurav?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, everyone, welcome to the Friday Tech Talk. We have a special talk today with the founder of Career Sprout. It's Gaurav Valani. Career Sprout is a career coaching company that's dedicated to helping professionals find meaningful work. Gaurav is also the co-founder of TrueBridge Staffing Agency, and he's a former VP with Overstock.com. Let's welcome Gaurav. Take it away, Gaurav.
Cool. Thank you guys for having me. Real quick before I jump into it, anyone here just on in the chat want to share? I know what you're hoping to get out of the call, but specifically what you want to get out. Is there like, what are you guys feeling in terms of roadblocks that you're dealing with if you're in the job search? Like, is it interviewing, getting interviews, job offers? Where are you guys kind of struggling? So if I see a theme, I can kind of zero in on something during this talk. Anyone? Resume materials, having hard time getting interviews in their pipeline, how to interview better, employment opportunities, where to apply. All right. Then I am at the right place.
Well,
Okay.
Gaurav, I
Yeah.
will say that our students are new to the industry, so they're kind of a deer in the headlights when they finish school, and they're just kind of give them an idea of what the best thing to do is for your first job.
Okay. Do you guys all like in this program, do you guys do capstone projects and stuff like that?
We don't, but we do have live projects at the end where they kind of do an internship,
Oh, okay.
and it's a 2 week sprint like they would do at a real job.
Got it. Okay. That's awesome. So, but most people have their GitHubs and their portfolios and all that kind of stuff most likely set up. I take it. Okay. Dude,
Yeah.
you guys are gonna get jobs. I promise you that. All right, let me just jump into this and we'll kind of speed through it. So let me present here. It's funny, like we help people get high-paying jobs in tech, and then like a lot of times I don't even know how to use tech. So apologies when I mess up. Let me share my screen. Y'all see this thumbs up? Yeah. Okay. So we'll just jump into it. So what we're talking about today is how to get a high-paying job in tech, right? And even if this might be your first job, you still want to maximize the amount of money you can get, because I think salaries have gone up significantly, specifically engineering salaries. So you want to take advantage of the market, even amidst all these layoffs and things like that. So, as Jacob mentioned, I've been running this company since 2016, but I've been in the recruiting staffing space for a long time, since maybe 2006. And so we've helped over 500 people land jobs. And I like actually that all of you specifically are kind of earlier in your careers or starting this off, because the biggest regret most of our clients tell us that they make is that they never took the time, or they were at least never taught how to think through building what they would consider a meaningful career. Most people who've gone to school or use career counseling, they just tell you slap together a resume, apply to as bunch of jobs as you can, and just take the first job you can get usually. But that's a recipe for disaster in so many ways, because when you don't know how to really build a career, you can end up easily bouncing around from one job to the next, right? So they're never taught even why it's important to think about how to build a meaningful career. So as a result of it, as I was just saying, most people, like most of our clients, are like in the 10-year, 7-year, 15-year people, right? And most of them, because they never took the time to really understand how to do this, they've just bounced around from one job to the next, to the next, to the next. They're kind of living unfulfilled. They're disengaged. They're undervalued. They're underpaid. They get FOMO because they see other people building really cool careers and they never get it. And they just bounce around aimlessly. And then ultimately what happens is they just settle, right? They just settle for like a mediocre career. And so what we're going to learn today is how to avoid that using the systems that we teach our clients. And I, even if you've had a career up until now that has not gone well, I always like to tell people that your past never dictates your future. If anything, you can leverage your past to build the right future. So by the end of this presentation, my entire goal is just to show you how you can land a high-paying job as quickly as you possibly can without having to spend as much time, like without even having to spend time applying to jobs. You guys, the only ask I have of you, there is no sales pitch at the end of this. There's nothing I'm going to sell you. I don't really care to. But if you find something valuable in this presentation, I would encourage that you pay it forward and share it with whoever you feel would benefit from it. Just a quick background, as he said, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I've been doing this career coaching thing since 2016. If I had the exact number, somewhere like 670 people have gone through our program and landed really good high-paying jobs. Like, these are life-changing offers that you're going to see in a few minutes. And I started off as a recruiter. I know most engineers hate recruiters because they're so slimy and they don't know what the heck they're talking about. And they'll say things like, "Do you have a GitHub?" So I was once one of those. But luckily for me, I got to recruit for companies such as Google and Facebook and Coca-Cola and Boeing. I mean, Netflix, you literally name it. I've mainly recruited for it. And so what that taught me was I got to see sort of like behind the scenes of how they find their candidates, what their interview process looks like, how they negotiate, what they look for on resumes, how to get through their little internal application system. I even know how they run their background checks and what you can get away with and what you can't, but I'm not going to dive deep into all that. But everything that I learned, I was able to like package it up and just show other people. And the reason I care about this so much is because my career never really took off until I learned all of this. And it was because I had mentors who taught this stuff to me. I just like sharing it with other people because I know how corporations can take advantage of candidates. And I kind of just like sticking it to the man. So this is why we do what we do. So what just happened, as you guys know, unless you've been living under a rock, 160,000 people were unemployed in Q4 of last year. I mean, not Q4, but all of 2022. But from Q4 last year, it was like 130,000. And then literally in the last 3 weeks since we've been in 2023, there have been 60,000 layoffs, right? And in our program, we're seeing very much the opposite. We're not seeing people getting laid off. We're seeing people landing really high-paying offers. And here's just a couple examples. We had a girl just named Kushali who just transitioned from healthcare into tech and increased her pay by 45,000. Catherine just increased her pay to 425,000. Now, of course, she has a little bit more experience than most people. And then this guy, these two particularly, Zach went through our program just like you guys. He went through a boot camp, General Assembly's boot camp, no experience into coding. First job, gets 130,000. They give him equity, and that equity just this past year got him over 7 figures. Aditi is also an engineer who just landed 2 offers as a software engineer and decided to go at Goldman Sachs. So the stuff that we're going to show you today is what I hope will help you guys land offers just like this. This has happened in the last 4 weeks. So I don't like focusing on the negative, and I hope you guys don't either. I don't care how many layoffs there are. It just means you have to take more control over your career, and you just have to take more accountability over your job search. And using these systems, you can do that. And when I show people stuff like this, like if you're in our program, you're in my world, this makes sense. If you're first new to me, people always think I'm BSing or there's some magic we're doing, or I don't know what it is. There is no magic. It's literally just a predictable system that brings predictable results. That's all it is. Oh, by the way, in our coaching program, we're going to give one of you a free seat in it by the end of it. So I'll select whoever. The way you win is if you find something in this presentation particularly helpful, particularly special, whatever, take a snapshot of it, post it on LinkedIn, post it on Instagram, and just tag me. Doesn't have to be both LinkedIn and Instagram, just one or the other, and just tag me. And then by the end of it, I will select one of you randomly, and we're going to offer a seat. Okay. So what are the 3 things that lead to success? First and foremost, we have to remove outdated belief patterns. 2, we need what's called a proven system. And then 3, we actually know how to execute that system. So that's all we're going to cover in this today. We're going to first talk about what are these outdated belief patterns. And it requires, in my opinion, a growth mindset. And what is a growth mindset? It's just believing that you can achieve more once you are privy to new information, right? Most of the time when we are when we feel negative towards something or towards a system we've never heard of, it's because we've just never tried it, and it's because we've been ingrained with beliefs that are completely opposite to that. And why does that happen? It's because most of the beliefs that we have been ingrained into us, and we're finding like decades worth of these entrenched beliefs. So the mindset that you have, I believe this truly, is directly visible in the choices that you make all throughout your life. And more importantly, it's visible in the choices you make daily. And I like to think that your mindset has been built by accident. How do we accidentally build our mindset? It's through things that we were raised with, right? The social circles we surround ourselves with, what our parents taught us, how you were raised, stuff we learned in school, the information you choose to consume. All of this stuff creates what's called an imprint in your mind. So through the power of brain plasticity, which is absorbing new information, applying new information, seeing how that information is now working for us to our favor, we start adopting a new set of belief patterns, right? So again, this comes from the same thing: the faith you have, the belief, the information you choose to consume, who you surround yourself with. All of those things will then create a new imprint. So I think mindset affects your outcome, simply put, right? And your happiness, and it removes you as the obstacle. So when you start changing your mindset, you start changing your results. The 4 mindset shifts you can make today that I think are particularly important, especially in the job market that we're in, as when you open up LinkedIn, all you're seeing is everyone and their mom talking about getting laid off. So this discourages people. And when it discourages you, it prevents you from taking action. But I think these mindset shifts are very critical in not only making them, but starting to adopt them and believe in them. And this is a funny story I like to tell people. It's not funny, actually, it's depressing. When I started in my career in 2006, between 2006 and 2012, I had probably the worst 6 years ever. And I had 10 different jobs in that time. My first job ever, I was selling Yellow Page ads. Do you guys know what remember Yellow Books and things like that? That's how old I am. So I was selling Yellow Pages when like the internet was very much a thing. And then I did some software sales and I did all this other crap. None of it really worked. Stumbled into the recruiting industry, became a slimy recruiter, didn't really like that. And then in 2000, by the time it was 2012, I had never made more than $48,000 in my career. And I decided to start a business with 6 other people. And I remember so specifically, by the way, this is when I met my wife, who I was dating at the time, and she was a teacher. She still is. And I was like, great, we're literally going to be poor forever because teachers make nothing. I couldn't make more than 48K. And then I was going to go and start this business. We raised $1 million. Within the first 13 months, we had lost 600 or 780,000 of that million. And I remember talking to my mentor before starting this business, and I was just so scared to even start it. And he's like, well, what's the worst case scenario if this business of yours fails? And I said, well, I guess I would have to go back to being like a recruiter at a staffing company. And he's like, great. Well, then how does it feel to be living your worst case scenario? And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And so I think what we're about to go through today, it's like, what is the worst case scenario if it doesn't work? Is that you just go back to doing what you're doing today. But if you apply it and it does work, you could change the entire trajectory of your life. And that's the whole goal of this, right? You're only one job offer away from changing the entire trajectory of your career. So that's step 1, is just shedding these outdated belief patterns. Now, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I'd rather just get to the system that works. So step 2 is, do you guys see this watermark, by the way? I used Canva to build this, and I am cheap, and I did not want to spend the $11 to remove the watermarks. That's why they're there, just FYI. So the second thing is we need a proven system that brings predictable results. Now, the disclaimer is the system that I'm going to teach you, I would like for you to follow it step by step by step. Don't try to jump around. because it is logically built on top of each step is logically built on top of each other. And I use this example, like if you go to a fitness trainer, I don't know if you've ever hired a fitness trainer or not, but they'll always tell you, follow this workout, eat this food, and recover this way. And if you do that, you'll see whatever result you want to see, more body muscle mass, less body fat, whatever. And I remember when I hired a trainer and he told me all these things, I would have to meet with him every single Monday. And he would always ask me on Mondays, like, what did you eat this weekend? And I remember a particular weekend where I had like 4 slices of strawberry cheesecake because I just freaking love cheesecake. And he went off on me and he's like, what the hell? Don't you know that it's going to ruin your macronutrients and this and that? And he just went off on me. But the point was like, he's just mad that I wasn't following the plan. So when you learn the system, the idea is don't eat the cheesecake and just follow the system step by step. So let's quickly start with, what is the old way of searching for a job that most of us are privy to today? Most people start their job search, just FYI, most, not all, from a place of one of these 3: scarcity, lack, or fear, right? They're so sick and tired of their current situation. They're either underpaid, undervalued, they're laid off, whatever, right? They hate their boss, they hate their culture, they want more pay. And so what do? They slap together a resume. They talk about everything they've ever done. They apply to hundreds of jobs, hardly ever hear back from anyone, or they do. It's a slimy recruiter like I used to be, and it doesn't really go anywhere. But they keep doing this, and eventually they'll get 1 or 2 interviews. They go on the interview, but because it's the only interview they have, they put so much pressure on themselves that they choke in the interview. They either say too much, say too little, undersell, oversell, just whatever, get too nervous, and they can't articulate their value properly, so they lose the interview. Then this happens again. They go back and apply to hundreds of jobs. At some point, they finally get a job offer, which is not even the job offer they wanted, and they just settle and they take it. Now, the company they're joining is probably not one they wanted to be at. The pay they got is probably not the pay they wanted. And so now they're discouraged and disgruntled already, starting like before they even start the job. So then they take this offer, they start the job, a year goes by, they hate it, they repeat the process all over again. So that's exactly what we want to avoid, right? That's the old way of searching for a job. So the new way of searching for a job is what we're going to go through today. These are the things that we're going to cover on how to do them and how to do them effectively. So this is the 5-step system. We never start our our job search with the resume. We start it with understanding where you want to go first, long term. So we call that defining your career nirvana. So let's start with that. And I use an example here. Most of you said you're in Portland or somewhere on the West Coast, but let's assume you're either on the West Coast or you live in LA where I live. And I said to you, I want you to drive from LA to New York, and you can't use any sort of map, no GPS device, no map. You can't ask anyone. You just have to figure it out. And for some strange reason, you actually have to listen to me. Well, you're smart enough to know, like, all right, fine. If I just drive northeast long enough, at some point, I'm going to get to New York. You know that much. But what we don't know is how long it's going to take you, how many times you're going to get turned around, how many times you're going to get detoured, how many times you're going to get lost, how many times you're going to stop at places you don't even want to stop at. You're going to burn a bunch of gas and oil and whatever, right? But at some point, you will have got to New York. Now, the other part is where in New York you end up, we don't know either. You could be in Buffalo, and, no disrespect to people who live there, but who the heck wants to be in Buffalo? You could end up in the hood, in the Bronx somewhere, and you don't want to be there either, but you'll get to New York. But because it took you forever and a day to get there, you went through all this frustration, you burned all this money on gas, you're going to be like, you know what, let me just stay put because I'm tired and I just want to relax for a bit. But instead, if I said, hey, I want you to drive from LA to the M&M store in downtown Manhattan, and this time you can use any GPS device that you want, well, we know exactly what you're going to do now, right? You're going to put the M&M store on your phone, and your Google Maps, Waze, whatever, and you're going to get the fastest, most effective route to the M&M store. You'll avoid getting lost, you'll avoid getting frustrated, you'll avoid getting turned around, and you'll avoid wasting gas. And then on top of that, you get M&Ms out of it, right? So I relate this to most people's careers, like I was telling you about. The reason most people bounce around, drive around, stop at companies they don't want to be at, stay at places for far too long, get undervalued, is because they never took the time to figure out what their M&M store was, which is they never took the time to figure out what they want to be doing long term. The reason we want to know what we're doing long term is because that tells us what we should be doing next, right? Once you know the destination, you know what the next turn should be. And more importantly, you know what turn to avoid. So it's really getting clear on what you want to do with your career. Do you want to be a director of engineering? Do you want to be a CTO? Do you want to be in leadership? Do you want to stay an individual contributor? Do you want to be in consulting? Do you want to work for huge enterprise, big tech companies? Do you want to work for startups? What is it, right? And get super granular. What do you want to be building? What kind of culture do you want to be in? And we do this through a career called an exercise called career mapping that our clients go through. I mean, I'm simplifying this. It's a lot more extensive than this, but what you want to understand is look at the profiles of the people who are doing the things you hope to be doing 3 to 5 to 7 years from now. And then reverse engineer the path that it took to get there, right? Like look at what were the things they did in their career to help them get to where they want to be. My gosh, there's so many people coming in. So let's say you studied 25 profiles, 30 profiles of people who are doing what you hope to be doing 3 to 5 years from now. Chances are, and this is what happened, this is like the aha moment for our clients, they all realize that there is a throughput, like a common consistency, common trait among all these people that they just studied. They're doing the same 3 to 5 things. They've taken the same 3 to 5 types of jobs. They've worked on the same 3 to 5 things. So if you see what they're doing, then it should be abundantly clear about what you should be doing next. That is the right next move, right? So we don't need to try to recreate the wheel. We don't need to try to figure things out and guess and then get frustrated by guessing and testing. Rather, just look at what the other people have done, reverse engineer how they got there, and that tells you what you need to be doing next. So the career mapping is a really key exercise for that. Here's like a simple, very basic sort of career map. If you were an accountant today and you wanted to be a CFO of a publicly traded company, that's your career nirvana, that's your M&M store, and you studied a lot of people's profiles, you'd realize that they just went from accountant to senior accountant. At some point, they were a controller. And then what you want to look for is what kind of things did they work on? Were they publicly traded companies? Were they privately traded or privately held companies? What were some of the types of reporting structures and tools they learned along the way and skills they developed? That kind of gives you a map of your own career. So you would do this for yours, in your case, for engineering. So your action item before you start building a resume is to understand what is it that what is my own M&M store? Where do I want to be? And again, get as granular as you possibly can with that idea. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to want a very keyword optimized resume. People put open to work on their LinkedIn profile, hoping that that's just going to attract a bunch of recruiters. But it's not going to attract anybody if your resume is not keyword optimized. Resumes, just like websites, are ranked on job boards and on LinkedIn based on keyword optimization, just like websites are based on search engine optimization. And when was the last time you guys ever looked on page 2 or certainly page 3 of a Google search result? Probably never, right? They say that's where websites go to die. It's the same thing with your resume. Your resume, once it's uploaded on LinkedIn or it's uploaded on these job boards, if it does not rank on the first page, chances of you getting a phone call are almost 0 to none. So we want to make sure that your resume is keyword optimized. So how do we know how to write what keywords to include? Now that we know from exercise number 1 what your next job is or should be, we want to go and look at 20 to 30 of those types of job descriptions. And we want to understand, again, if you look at 20 to 30 of these job descriptions, you're going to notice a throughput across all of them too. They're all going to ask for the same 3 to 5 things. They're all going to have the same 3 to 5 responsibilities. They're all going to say you're working on very similar type of work. So now that should indicate to us what keywords we need to add to our resume. Okay, and you can't add fluff, just quantifiable data. Fluff is like, I'm a fast learner. I can work in a fast-paced environment. I'm a self-starter. That's all fluff. If it's not quantifiable, don't include it. Just include what is quantifiable. And each resume, just so you know, should always include a very strong summary, skills, tools. In your area, it could be languages, and then accomplishments. Now, you might say, oh, I don't have as many accomplishments. You could still say something about what you learned, what you worked on, and what did that help solve. These are things that you could still include, and that helps. And then this section where you're adding skills and tools, You want to add as many of these as you possibly can, because again, that pushes your resume up and ranks it higher. You see how this, what should be abundantly clear when someone reads your resume, FYI, is what is the value that you bring, and what is either the impact that you've made and or the impact that you're capable of making. And then you want to know who it's relevant for. If it does not articulate that, again, chances of you getting a phone call are really slim. And think of especially slim today when there's like 160,000 new people in the workforce. So if you look at this person's profile, this is a client of ours, but she got a job at Google just recently. It's very clear what problem she's capable of solving and what her impact was or is, and what's the value that she brings, right? So we always want to have a profile section, skills, tools, and then where under each job that you have or under your boot camp, you want to talk about some sort of quantifiable data that can be considered an accomplishment. And this is a really cool tool that you can use. They let you do about 5 or 6 free searches before they start charging you, but it's called jobscan.co. It's really cool because once you've built your resume, you can post the job description on one end and then post the job, your resume on the other, and then it'll just tell you if it is keyword optimized or not. And we tested this for over, I don't know, for the last like 4 or 5 years. So if you're getting a score of 70 to 75%, that is more than enough. Don't let jobscan.co trick you into believing you need a 90 or 95% score because they're just trying to sell you their services. So this is a really good way to quickly test if your resume is headed in the right direction or not, and if it needs more keywords or not. When you do this correctly, this was a client just recently, got interviews, I believe at Apple, and then a couple other places. He ended up getting a job, or is going to get a job at Facebook at some point if they unfreeze their hiring. But they all got back to him because his resume was keyword optimized. So action item number 2 is, once you know what your career nirvana is, and you know then more importantly what your next job should be, then go and study 15 to 20 job descriptions of that specific job that you're going after. Full stack, front end, back end, doesn't really matter. Study that. And then use jobscan.co and then start building your resume and your LinkedIn profile to see if it's optimized or not. And then you could use this tool to see if it is. Now what we want to do, so step 3 is, once you have your resume and your LinkedIn profile working for you, that's really cool because now you're going to get a lot of inbound traffic, meaning you should be getting calls from hiring managers and recruiters. But the thing we always tell our clients is that you want to avoid, we never want to leave our careers in the fate of our careers, rather, in the hands of recruiters. And like simply applying to jobs does not work. So we want to not rely on that. Instead, what we want to do is just get in front of hiring managers. And in your case, could be directors of engineering, even product managers, group product managers, CTOs, that sort of thing. So you want to find the senior leaders who work at companies that you admire or that you'd want to work for, and you want to reach out to them. Plus, you want to start building a network from scratch or leveraging a network that you have. You have the Tech Academy. There's so many alumni that have gone through the Tech Academy. That's a great place to start. I'm sure there's like a job board or a group, something like that, where you can find people who've gone through this bootcamp, see where they work today, start reaching out and building relationships with them. Maybe you've worked at other companies where past colleagues have moved on and now they're at companies you want to work at. Maybe you went to a school with a good, again, alumni network. You could reach out to alumni there. The other thing is, you want to just literally cold reach out. This is what most of our clients do. They will cold reach out to hiring managers and recruiters who work at the companies that they want to work for. And I'm going to tell you what they say to them once they find them. The average job seeker, if and when they do reach out to somebody, what they're saying is like, "Hey, John, my name is Jacob. I saw a job posting that I think I'd be a great fit for. Would love to talk to you about it." Think about how many times a hiring manager gets a message like that. A ton, if you don't know. And what you've said to them is basically, give me your time, give me your time, give me your time. You've offered them very little value. So instead of saying a message like that, that's very vague and generic, you want to give them what's called a value added reach out. And so what we come up with is that exactly that. Here's a really good strategy, or sorry, a really good template of what you could say. most of the stuff that you're going to find is on the job description itself. They're going to say, we want you to be working on this. We want you to be solving for that. The challenge we're facing is this. This is what you're going to be doing. So if you found a job that you're interested in, you can go and find a hiring manager on LinkedIn, because usually it's posted. But even if it isn't, Jacob, would it be okay if I just stop sharing this and I showed everyone real quick on LinkedIn how to find some hiring managers?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, let me show you guys. Actually, in the chat, would you guys find that valuable or no? Yeah,
I think it would be good.
all right, let me show you guys, because it's people think it's hard, so it's really not. So let me show you my LinkedIn profile, or I'm just pulling up LinkedIn here. All right, see this? Let's say, for example, you wanted to work at Spotify and you're going for an engineering job, right? Full stack, whatever. I typically just type in something like this: manager or director, or we could even stop at that, and engineering and Spotify. Now you have all these people who are engineering managers at Spotify. You won't know who your exact hiring manager is, but it doesn't matter. The idea is you want to reach out to multiple people in these companies and then reach out to them, giving them a message like, hey, I just finished this boot camp where I learned how to do this, 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 and I was researching the job that you have open, and it seems like what you're looking for is someone to help solve for XYZ things. It'd be great to chat to show you how I just learned how to solve for that, or I have solved for that in the past. Let me know if you have some time to chat. So here's just managers that you find at Spotify. And then you would message them and you would just give them a little note and then start reaching out. The other thing you could do, which is super cool, is you could just type in hiring and Spotify. And now you'll see people who are hiring that may work at Spotify. Senior engineering manager. If they're showing up on here, it's because at some point they said they were hiring. So now I would reach out to, look at this guy. Well, he's not at Spotify anymore, but he's saying we're hiring, right? Look, head of content value, hiring. So now these people are inviting you literally to reach out to them because they're hiring. So then you can send them that same note. So that's how you find managers. It's super, super simple. I always tell people, just don't overcomplicate anything. And then here, we'll go back to sharing this other screen. So when you find them, you're going to send them a message that pertains to you, but you're going to make it more value added. So when they read it, they have more incentive to open it. Now in our program, we have our clients send about 100 of these messages, and we're averaging right now about a 43.7 conversion rate. So think of it like this: if you send out 100 job applications and you maybe hear back from 1 or 2 recruiters, but mainly ghosted by others, or you reach out to 100 potential hiring managers and you hear back from 43 of them, and let's say your average is even worse. Let's say you don't even hear from 43, you only hear from 20. You just heard back from 20 people that could potentially lead to 20 interviews. Now, let's say 10 of those people get back to you and only 10 of them say, yeah, let's talk. Now you have 10 potential interviews set up, right? Let's say of those 10, only 5 of them say we have a job here. Now you got 5 interviews just like that you would never have had you simply just wasted your time applying to jobs. So this is where most of our clients concentrate their efforts because it brings the most ROI. And that's why I always advocate you don't need to sit there and apply for job after job after job. Rather, the name of the game, just FYI, is it's not, when you start your job search, the name of the game is not how many jobs can I apply to each week. It's how many conversations can I get set up. So that should then it kind of tells you what's the activities I need to be focusing on to get conversations set up, and it's this. So the reaching out to people is literally the best thing you could do. And the rule of thumb is that what we focus on is, if you did want to work at Spotify or whatever companies you want to work at, find 5 potential hiring managers and then find 5 recruiters using what I just taught you how to do. And then use that kind of script to message them when you can. And again, what you're doing is, if you do this right, over time, you're going to be building a network. right? From your alumni, from your friends, from this cold outreach strategy. You're going to start building a network. And from there, you want to always, you just want to nurture that network as best as you can. Don't try to go into it saying, hey, if you don't have a job for me, I'll never talk to you again. Keep nurturing that network. Say, how can I help you? Is there anything we can do, I can do to help? Right. And the more you nurture the network, the more that network will pay off for you in the long term. This guy's our client, Wesley Evans. When he started with us, it was right here when Snap, he got his first job at Snap. Now he had no experience, just like all of you, or most of you. He did not have any experience in product. He literally graduated college, and then he wanted to work so badly as a product manager, so he took this first job as a facilities coordinator. He was the guy who got people their laptops, their phones set up, all that, their desk. But then 6 months later, or 8 months later, he got his first job as an associate product manager, went from 63 to 77. And then 6 months after that, he got he got a PM job, making 90. When he decided to leave Snap, he did not apply to a single job. He just leveraged the relationships he had just built from the cold outreach and building a network strategy we just talked about. And he got his first job at Atrium, making $125,000. Look at that time, November to November. So he didn't waste any time. So he went from 90 to 125. And more importantly, he went from 63 in 2016. In 2 years later, he was making over six figures. Then in COVID, when COVID happened, which was April of 2020, around that time, he lost his job. And then in 26 days, he found his next job, which put him over 250,000. And you know what's super cool is like engineers and product managers make the most money in the tech industry, right? So like there is no reason you should not leverage this strategy because it just simply works. So send outreach messages. Here's someone who is actually in finance. This is a client of ours. He sent this strategy, used this strategy, and messaged the chief financial officer at Qdoba, and that guy literally got back to Mehul and said, "Yeah, you want to connect this week." So look how high up it can work. This message, doing this stuff, these things. This guy, another client of ours, sent this message to somebody who was a VP at some company, and even the VP wrote back and said, "I applaud you for your bold approach in self-advocacy. I passed your message in profile to hiring managers." That's awesome, right? Gina actually was an engineer, and she got responses back very recently from Pinterest, WillowTree, Twilio, Airbnb, Google, you name it. So that is a point. Now look at this. I'm going to bring up one more example. This was a client of ours, same name as me. He said, "I got an offer," and I said, "Oh, here it is, right here. Look," he said, I accepted an offer today." So what he said, "Look, for a lead consultant, remember the contact I made via LinkedIn? We sent her a Starbucks gift card. She introduced me to one of her contacts. He and I had exploratory calls. He got a new role at CVS. 6 or 7 interview rounds later, they made me an offer for 160. In total, this guy's making 100K more." So who you reach out to, you just have no idea what it can lead to. And it never hurts to try. Remember, what's the worst case scenario? So your action items from this are, after you've done the resume, after you've done the career mapping exercise, you know where you're going, go and map out 20 companies that you want to work for, or 20 companies that are hiring. Go and find 5 recruiters and 5 potential hiring managers at each of those companies, and then reach out to them using the template that I just shared with you. And then start reconnecting with former friends like that. And then join other groups, right? There's really strong Slack communities, Facebook groups that would be helpful, where a lot of hiring managers and other senior people kind of hang out and just talk all things tech and all things coding. Okay, so what happens is you do all of this enough and you're going to inevitably start landing calls and interviews. And so what we don't want to do is when most people go on an interview, remember how I said they start from a place of scarcity, lack, or fear? So when they go on interviews, the biggest mistake they make is they come across as someone looking for some job, right? So it's like they're coming from a place of like desperation, and desperation is the stinkiest cologne or perfume you can ever wear. So instead of coming across as someone looking for some job, You want to come across as a solution to the problem that company is trying to solve. So it's kind of like what we want to do is adopt what's called consultative interviewing. The opposite of that is transactional interviewing, which is they ask you a question, you answer. They ask you a question, you answer. They ask you a question, you answer. The problem with that method is you literally, it's like you are not leaving them with any memorable insight of you, right? There's nothing that that makes you stand apart other than you might just be good at your job. So instead, we want to be consultative. Like if you ever wondered why consulting companies like like Deloitte, Accenture, Bain, McKinsey, these guys can charge gazillion dollars to companies like Disney, is because they'll go to Disney. Let's say Disney's implementing a new app for their water parks and resorts divisions, like a new mobile app. And they're trying to do it on their own and they're not doing it well. Deloitte will come in and they'll say, hey, looks like you're trying to do this thing and build out a mobile app for all your water parks and resorts divisions. Tell us what you've done up until now. Tell us what hasn't worked. What kind of resources and headcount do you have deployed to it? What's your budget? When do you want to get it done by? What's your schedule? What happens if you don't get it done by this schedule? What they're doing is they're extracting all these pain points. And then Disney tells them all their pain points. And then what Deloitte does is they say, all right, let us go back and see if we can help you. They go back, put together some fancy little deck, and then they say, hey, Disney, you know what? We actually think we could help you achieve your goal ahead of schedule, way under budget. Here's the resources we deploy. Here's the app developers we have on our team. Here's what they've done. And here's how we're gonna get you to the finish line as fast as possible. Here's the phases. And by the way, if you want to work with us, it costs $1 gazillion. And then Disney says, oh, okay, cool. Here you go, Deloitte. Here's $1 gazillion. So what did Deloitte do well there? They extracted the pain points and then they positioned themselves as a solution to those pain points. So when you go on an interview, you're doing the same thing, right? By the way, the first question you always want to ask when you go on an interview, if you want the answers to the test, is this question. So the second an interview starts, you always want to say, hey, thank you so much for making the time to meet with me today. I'm excited to talk about the role. I'm so curious to know, what was it about my background that made you want to meet with me today? Or what stood out about my experience in particular that made you want to meet with me today? It's such a powerful question to ask because now they start selling to you. So they'll say, oh, well, you know what? I love this and I love that. And it looks like you worked on this or you have experience with that. We need that. Here's the problems we're facing. That's what they tell you. So now that indicates what you should be focusing on for the rest of the interview. And more importantly, what is completely irrelevant for that interview. So this is how you start being consultative. I had a client just do this recently and he's like, dude, I was able to ask what she liked about my resume. It's such a simple thing, but it basically gave me a view into what she was looking to and how it helped him craft his response. My entire game plan was something else, and I switched it up on the spot after she basically spoon-fed the answer to me. Not only that, but she also told me what she wants to talk about tomorrow. This is like a powerful, powerful, subtle question that you want to ask. The other types of questions you want to ask throughout the interview to make it way more consultative, to extract their pain points so that you can position yourself as a solution to those pain points, are things like, why is this position open? What is he or she going to be working on? How long have you been working on it? What is the timeline you're trying to meet? What are some of the biggest challenges you've had trying to fix this thing or trying to work on this thing? What do you want to see more of? More importantly, how do you define success in this role? What do you want to see achieved by the 60-day mark, the 90-day mark, the 1-year mark? So as they're spoon feeding you their pain points, now you know what experiences and things you should be talking about to them and how you can help them solve those problems rather than just guessing. This takes the guesswork out of it. And I'm not going to sit here and go into if you haven't heard of the STAR method, you should research it. It's just a really good way to frame most of your answers. It's actually a really powerful way, by the way. So I would look into that. But these are just some of the questions you should be asking. At the end of the interview, as you know it's starting to wrap up, it's really great to be able to say, hey, would it be okay if I quickly recapped what I think you're looking for in this hire? And in the history of history, no one has ever said no. They'll always say, yeah, sure. Then recap to them what you just heard in the interview. It sounds like, and the reason we're doing this is for two things. You want to reinforce their pain points and reinforce how you're going to help solve them. So it sounds like the biggest problem you're trying to solve is X and Y and Z. And how you're going about that is 1, 2, 3 things. But what you're really looking for is someone to help do this, 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 or change this, 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 or come in with this type of experience. Did I miss anything? They'll tell you if you did or didn't. And then you conclude with the final question of the interview, which is, great. So based on that recap, do you have any concerns about my ability to step into this role and be effective? Because I would love to clarify or confirm your concerns. This is really powerful because a lot of times when people leave interviews, they're done with interviews, they'll always be like, shoot, I wish I said this, or I wonder if I said that, or if I did I talk too much here, or did I articulate my strengths well, or whatever, right? They start kind of like going through that script in their head and they just dissect it to the point where they get sick to their stomach. So again, we want to remove the guessing and all the frustration out of the interview process. So when you ask this final question, if they have concerns, they'll tell you. And if it is a valid concern, you could just admit to it. You could say, listen, you're right. I don't have that experience, but here's how I plan to learn it and come up to speed. And if what they gave you a concern about was something that's invalid, you could say, that's my fault. I should have done a better job of clarifying that. Let me tell you actually how I do have that type of experience. And a lot of times, if they say you don't have this particular experience, you could say, that's okay. I understand why that would be a concern of yours. Let me tell you how I didn't have experience when I started at this other job, but here's how I came up to speed on it. So try to redirect them from a negative to a positive. So one, you've heard their concerns, you've validated their concerns, and then you've redirected them from a negative to a positive to conclude the interview. That way you can go to bed at night knowing you did the best you possibly could. You addressed every concern that they possibly could have had. And if you follow this method, to the T, it just works. I could have shown you hundreds of these examples, but that's not what this presentation is about. But look at this girl. She basically went from $15 an hour when we first started working through her. And then, we work with our clients for life once they've signed up with us. And so the most recent job she got took her over 200,000 after stock. So it's just like, this is what I mean about one job offer can change the entire trajectory of your career if you apply it correctly, if you apply this process correctly. Lastly is once you go through this and do enough interviews, you're going to get job offers. So I always tell people negotiation is not about just the base salary. Make sure you're looking at the total comp and make sure you're looking at all the right factors too. Remember, this is about how the job I get next, does it move me closer or further away from my M&M store? So look at all of it. Does it have a great leadership team in place? Are there great opportunities for growth? Are they going to reimburse me for like more boot camps or more training or more learning? Do they have a great culture? Do they have great mentors that I can learn from and develop from? Right? Do they have great equity or stock or bonus plans, sign-ons? There's a lot of things that you can negotiate outside of just base salary. People always focus on base salary, but there's more to that. And negotiation is never about you winning and them losing. It's about both of you coming to a mutual win-win situation. And FYI, I don't care what you make today or if you've never been in this field, you have to know what your value is. Remember the thing I talked about mindset. Most people make a big mistake because they negotiate from the place they're from today. So if they're making 50K today, they'll take a job that pays them 65K or 70K because it's just a pay increase. But chances are that job, if you've been at one company for far too long, what if that job in the marketplace actually pays 95 to 105 now, especially with inflation going up? You just left an extra $45,000, $50,000 on the table. So never negotiate based on what you're making today or what you've made in the past. You always want to negotiate from a place of what your value is in the marketplace today and your future value. Just other things you can do to research, places you can go to research your salaries, like mysalaryscale.com, Glassdoor, payscale.com, salary.com. LinkedIn Insights is another great tool. Just make sure you're doing your research so you know exactly what to ask for. And when you get a job offer, I'm going to go to this. This is really important because we're running out of time here. When you get a job offer, you never want to accept the first job offer you get. You always want to tell them, you know what, thank you so much for this offer. Let me look it over. If you can send me whatever you need to send me in writing, and then I'll get back to you with some questions. And then when you counter, like most people, let's say you get an offer for 100K and you want 110. Most people say, is there any way you can get to 110? And now they could just say no, and boom, you don't have that 110, right? Then you can't say, okay, well, what about 105? Because now it just looks desperate again, tacky. So instead, you want to always give them multiple options. And I have the exact template that we use in that our clients use to how to present it. So look at this guy. He just got an offer from TikTok. Okay, this is TikTok. 140 salary plus 25% average bonus, no cap. 425 RSUs worth 20,000. So total comp's 195. 15 days PTO, whatever, right? And I said that's a cool offer. It actually was a really good offer, but you could still negotiate. So here's the message that we sent to TikTok. The exact message we sent to TikTok. I wrote it for him. So you say, thank you for the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Based on the exploratory research I did via Glassdoor salary, plus factoring in my experience or background. And if you don't have experience, you stick to this part. Oops. You stick to this part, Glassdoor salary. I found that the more comparable salary range for this role is between 153 and 165. Remember, they offered him 140. Lastly, the two other roles that I'm in the interview process with are at 160. And so we don't just say, instead, I would like to ask for blank. We say, I would like to respectfully ask if there's any flexibility to close the gap. And guys, I've been inside of multi-billion-dollar companies. I know what HR is capable of doing and what they're not. This message just works. So then what you do is you give them the option and let them negotiate against themselves. So when you do this, they think the ball is in their court because they can pick and choose. But really, TJ, this guy who took the offer, he would have been happy with any one of these. He was already happy with this one, right? But you want to give them options. So they think the ball is in their court, but really you're the one winning because you would have accepted anything that out of these three. So this is the message that we send them. And then this is the offer that he got. So it took him from 140K to 160K, but they actually gave him the options. They said, look, you can have a little bit more base and then less RSUs, or less base only by 5K and way more RSUs. And it went from 200 or 195 total comp to 222,000 total comp. So what he did was he avoided leaving $30,000 on the job on the table. So he took the lower one because it offered way more RSUs, and this will pay off when TikTok goes public. 63% salary increase. Pretty cool, right? Again, so if you do this correctly, this is more and more examples of how our clients just leverage this exact process, and then they just get these crazy job offers. So I told you in the beginning, there's no magic. It's just a proven process that brings predictable results. And so if you, after going through all this, if this still feels unclear or you feel lost or you think you can need help, we actually don't have any more seats in our coaching program, and we probably won't till end of February now. But we do have a free community where we offer weekly coaching calls that you're more than welcome to join. And if you want to join that, this is the link. I can stop this and copy and paste it into the chat if you guys want to join this. But we have now it's a little more than 180, but we have members that join this, and every week we provide free coaching calls, and we talk through wherever you're at in the job search process. Plus we have free resources you could use, plus people networking here. I just think it's a really cool way for us to be able to give back to people who need it. So if this is going to help you, I would join this, and I'll put it in the chat. And this is just a really cool quote that I wanted to end on, because I truly believe in it. So if you're really early in your career, you're starting this off, or all of this is new to you, it's going to seem hard at first. And then in the middle, it might get messy. But then at the end, if you stick with it, it's just beautiful results, right? Like the girl who had $15 an hour to 200K in 5 years, that's a beautiful result. So stick with it, because I do believe most people are closer than they think. So that is the end of it. Thank you, guys. I'll put the link in the thing right now in the chat group if you want to join the group, and then we can open it up to if anyone has Q&A, we can open it up.
Great talk, Gaurav. And I like that you gave the exact steps for what you should do for finding the job you want. And it was really highly focused and detailed. So
Thank you, guys.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome with that. I'm going to put your Career Sprout link in the chat as well.
Sure.
So people are welcome to check that out. Now, there's a couple questions in the chat. Everyone is welcome to ask questions in the chat if you'd like. If you do want to do a verbal question, you can raise your hand. I'll unmute your mic. And but one question I did have, you spoke of having a mentor, and mentors are really important, and it's part of the networking part of your career and finding work. What would be a couple tips you would give for finding a good mentor?
So it's like the saying that I believe in is proximity is power, right? So what does that mean? Put yourself in the same room as the people that you want to be like. So remember I talked about joining Slack communities? So like product management, for example, FYI. There is a group on Facebook called Women in Product. It has like 30,000 members, and it is so freaking engaged. Like everyone and their mom in there is just chatting, helping each other. There's hiring managers in there. There's no recruiters allowed. Everything is just, everyone in there is just geeking out to all things product. And it's super cool because it's like people who are individual contributors, people who are early in their career, they're hanging out and talking to like senior leaders. So when you find people who are in these groups that you join, you can Google Slack communities, look at Facebook groups, look at LinkedIn groups. That's the easiest way, right? Meetups like you guys are part of. And then start engaging with them. Like if they're sharing content or sharing tools that are helpful, engage with them and just message them, be like, hey, this was really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I had no idea about blah, 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 blah. Also, by the way, I had a chance to look at your LinkedIn profile. It's so impressive how you've been able to navigate your career. Would you have 10 minutes to chat with me so I can maybe pick your brain? And if you message this 10 people and only 3 of them say, yeah, that's fine. Right now you have 3 people that you started a relationship with. And then remember I said you have to nurture that relationship and build upon it. Maybe you can start sharing resources in there that are helpful. Don't have imposter syndrome and think you have nothing to add. If you come across a cool podcast, a cool resource, a cool group, a cool article, share that kind of stuff in these groups because someone will value it. So I think that's a really quick way to go and start surrounding yourself by people who are further ahead of you, and then securing mentors that way.
Yeah, really good advice. So in the chat, this is more of a comment. I think Chris just wants your thoughts on it. But it says, I am not early in my career. Worked as an electronic engineer for a medical device manufacturing company after college. Had considered time off for family caregiving, then got back into tech work for my current employer. It's a small business. I've been doing it for 6 years. So transitioning to a data analytics career, I'm starting over and I'm not a young person. So just kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so what? Age has nothing to do with it. I think it's good that you're doing that. And if anything, when you're making a transition like that, a lot of people actually get bogged down by the fact that like when they're making a career transition, they think that they naturally just have to start at the bottom. And I've just seen too many examples of proving that wrong. So if you are making a transition, the better question to ask the thing you want to stop focusing on is I don't have any experience there. More importantly, you have to ask yourself, like, what transferable skills do I have that are applicable to this industry or this job? And these could be intangible things, right? Like if you're a mechanical engineer or electrical engineer in the past, you probably worked on some really cool things. You probably helped simplify processes. You probably helped mentor people. You probably did something that had some sort of an impact at your work. These are things that you want to highlight and showcase because it shows how dynamic you are. So I think my general thought, without there being a specific question, is like, ask yourself, what are the transferable skills I have today that are applicable in the new area I'm trying to go, and then start kind of advocating for those transferable skills.
All right.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, that was definitely really helpful. Looks like Jasmine has a question. I'm going to unmute your mic, Jasmine. and then go ahead with your question. All right, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I've been to a lot of presentations that are similar to this, and this has definitely had the most value. I've learned a lot of things that I just haven't from a lot of articles, so I just wanted to thank you for that.
That's awesome.
And as far as my question, given that this is sponsored by Tech Academy, are there any considerations that you have for bootcamp grads in this process of trying to find, a job that is going to pay what people feel that they're worth, like not underselling yourself, competing with CS graduates, and, getting your worth, even though you might be transitioning into that career and just starting out.
Yeah, remember that guy Zach I talked about? Were you on here? I mean, he got a really
I
good.
came in about 20 minutes late, so I'm sorry. So I may or may not have been, but.
So we had a client named Zach who went through a boot camp, and he had no experience. He was actually like a band manager. Like he used to manage bands, and then went to a boot camp, learned. I think it was, I forgot what kind of, I know nothing like when it comes to your guys' languages, like what does what, but he was like more on the back end. So I think that's not like PHP and stuff. But anyway, his capstone project, his portfolio, the stuff he was just working on in the side was super cool, right? And it was very clear that he knew how to build things. And so I think the biggest approach again is, it's like asking yourself, what problems have I gotten really good at solving and that I can continue to get better in? And then who needs those problems to be solved? It doesn't matter if you're going up against a CS grad. What you need to come across as, remember, is the solution to the problem a company's trying to solve. So when you go through these process, like these steps in this process, when it comes time for reaching out to people, you want your perceived value to already be high. And the way it comes across as high is by showing them, talking to them, articulating how your strengths, your experiences, what you've worked on can help them achieve the problems that they have. That gets the interview started, or the conversation started. And then every single interview, it's on you to now kind of reinforce what they already believe to be true about you because they took the call, right? So like by the time of the interview is done, if you've done that correctly through how many ever stages there are, your value is so high that they almost don't want to lose you. So then typically they'll go above market to kind of keep you, right? Because remember, they're not just paying you on today's value. If you've done all this right, they're paying you on future value too. So this is kind of how then you use this intelligent negotiation structure and apply it to that. So does that help?
Yes, that helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, of course, Jasmine. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Jasmine. Great question. Let me get back to the chat here. And
was this helpful, by the way, for most people, or anything I shouldn't have done, or more of it?
Okay. No, I think this is Gaurav. This is awesome.
Okay, cool.
Like I said, I love the detailed steps of how you should go about your career search, and with being highly focused. And I think that's really it was a really good talk. Really
cool.
Good talk. All right. So it looks like Jasmine had a question in here, but I think that just got answered. Okay. All right, so Chris has another question. It says, I just read at the beginning when you asked what folks were looking for in the presentation, a comment was made that everyone was new to tech. I'm not new, just transitioning to the field. Thank you for commenting on that. So that's a comment.
Cool.
All right, and we've got Young Kim says, hey, Gaurav, thanks for your presentation. It was awesome. For the questions you mentioned that we should ask during the start, mid, end of the interview, should that be pointed towards the hiring manager interview?
Yes. Yeah, I should have clarified that. Thanks. Recruiters, it doesn't matter so much. But once you start meeting with like the leadership team or your coworkers that you might potentially work with, yeah, you want to direct it to them, because they're the ones that ultimately make the decision.
All right. And Jacob asked, and I know you kind of talked about your, is it your class that you give that's full right now?
Yeah, our coaching program is completely
coaching
full.
Program.
Yeah. So that we are not enrolling any new members, but that's why I offer the free community instead. So we do at least once a week coaching calls in there and have free resources. And the free seat that we are going to give away to whomever is sharing whatever, that will be for the coaching program.
Okay.
So for now, I would join the free community, get some free coaching calls, and then, I mean, we offer a ton of value. Like the steps we went through today, like we go into them in depth in this community, and it's kind of nice because we built it in such a way where you don't need like a Facebook, like you don't need to log in with any social media. You just create whatever account. It's free. You can remain anonymous if you want. Doesn't matter. But it's really cool because it's like a safe place to like network with people and like ask questions and just kind of go about your business. So I would join that for the time being. And then if you need help down the line when we open up enrollment, you're certainly more than welcome to reach out. We can talk about it then.
So those are the best ways to interact with Career Sprout. Any other recommendations?
No, that's it. Yeah. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Keep me posted on your job search. But stay in touch, right? Like, remember how we talked about mentors? Like this is one. Now I'm not going to commit to being able to talk to everyone every week, but at least this is one of the ways you do that, right? So stay in touch, nurture the relationships. But I always like to know like what's going on. How's your job search going? If I could provide quick feedback, I will. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn and don't be shy. I know engineers are shy. They're either just shy or they don't like talking to people, but don't be shy.
All righty. Any other questions?
I appreciate you guys for spending this. I know I went over, so thank you guys also for taking the time to do this today on a Friday.
Yeah, well, it was a really interesting talk. The time just kind of flew because it was so good. So
I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. I am leaving the link for the Tech Academy. It's learncodinganywhere.com. We are a career school. We do teach coding with C#, Python, SQL database, that kind of thing. And it is a really intense boot camp, but it is quick. And we have really good career training afterwards also. And you can use Career Sprout. There's a link for it there. And yeah, Gaurav, awesome talk. Thank you very much.
For sure.
And
nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me.
Good to meet you. I will connect with you on LinkedIn, and I will be checking out Career Sprout. And yeah, have a great weekend. Thank you.
Likewise. Thanks, guys. Bye, everyone.
All right. Take care, Gaurav. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for coming out, and we will see you next Friday. Have a great weekend.